Why are militaries split into COS, warrants, and enlisted? When you are commissioned as an officer, that is the thing that allows you to issue orders. When you resign from the military, you do it by resigning your commission. So NCOs are in fact non-commissioned officers and simply issue orders from the officer in charge. They do not legally issue their own orders. A warrant officer holds what is called a warrant, and that allows them to legally issue orders to NCO and regular personnel. They exist to fill a place where even a junior officer like a lieutenant is felt to be wasted. Since most lieutenants are normally in charge of at least a platoon. This is just a description of the system, not an explanation of why it's set up like this. The answer is the incredible increase in Army pilots during the Vietnam War. The Army Air Corps became the Air Force, so the Army didn't need many pilots. Once the Army started buying massive amounts of helicopters, they wanted the pilots to have some rights as officers, but I think they balked at having that many commissioned officers and instead turned to warrants. As a warrant officer, I used to say that I had all the privileges of a commissioned officer and half the responsibilities. Twice the respect too. In the US military, minus Air Force and Space Force, which is, come on, a warrant officer is a technical and tactical expert in a specific field. About half of the Army's WAS are pilots, with the rest divided among 40 or so career fields, including boat captains. For many years, the selling point for WAS was that the Army didn't require a college degree to become one. They still don't require it, but promotion gets tough if you're competing with folks who have degrees. In the past, WAS were not authorized in command roles, but that is also no longer true. Source: I'm a retired CW5. Edit: the way it was explained to me, when you commission something, you hope it works. When you warrant something, you know it works. People who are born into something but far removed from its origin will think of or make up all kinds of reasons to justify why things are as they are. Truth is, armies were structured in this way originally in Europe for reasons of class and political reliability, which are intertwined. Today, officers go through selection and political education and have certain privileges to keep them apart and instill in them Republican and Democratic values. Recall Trump tried to involve the Army in the massacre of protesters and seizing ballots, but the officer corps, despite being more white, masculine, and conservative than America, simply refused. Politically reliable. Imagine every random special forces tough guy who proved himself in battle were in charge instead. I've seen plenty of things alleged against Trump, for good reason, but I haven't heard this exact thing yet. It sounds slightly hyperbolic, which I get if so, but are there any links or proof you can provide for this? The massacre of protesters, and seizing of ballots, specifically. I don't want to dig through the Google cesspool of biased sources from both sides in case you have something on hand. Warrant officers are technical experts. I was an Army NCO technician, and we had a lot of warrant officers. They were NCOs with advanced training who went to a school and got promoted. Missile techs, auto techs, supply, finance, and more. Pay is generally awarded by rank rather than specific job. It would be a logistical nightmare to have 500 different pay scales. For obvious reasons, a trained doctor should be paid more than someone who barely graduated high school on the first day, or else he would never join. At the same time, you don't want the lawyer whose entire combat experience was the 2 hours at the range during training to be in command of people who are actually trained to fight no matter the situation. Well, what if all of the commanding officers are in a tent and it explodes? Then it goes to the highest in command situation. Even here, having the lawyer in command is a worse idea than the barely literate crayon eater who spends his days on the range, and his nights playing gay chicken with the nearby crayon eaters. Physicians and other professionals are given the rank of officer because they would have come from the gentry when an officer had to pay for his commission. Today, the military have to compete with civilian wages. So it makes sense to give these people the rank of major to ensure they are appropriately paid. It's based on a system that developed during a time when there was a vast educational difference between the strata of society. Why do officers have to go to school? All those projects you work on in class get you really familiar with MS Office. To be a successful officer, you'll need to be used to pulling all-nighters typing orders on Word and formatting briefs on PowerPoint. If you aren't fluent in PowerPoint and can't differentiate all the built-in sans serif fonts, then you have no business being an officer. During Vietnam, there most certainly was enlisted pilots. Honestly, most of the reason it is this way is because it's always been this way, and it sometimes doesn't make sense in a modern context. Officers had to be politically reliable enough to support the ruler/government and educated well enough to read orders, manuals, books on strategy and tactics, etc. Enlisted men were often conscripts with little education, and since they were pressed into service, couldn't be considered very supportive of the government that did that. This is an aspect of running a military that people in the US don't remember firsthand. It was a bit like running a prison, and the NCOs filled the role of prison guard as one of their more important duties. Warrant officers are a more modern invention. Officers usually aren't technical experts except in certain cases like doctors. Enlisted personnel may become technical experts, and at some point they may be given an opportunity to become a warrant officer. Having warrant officers gives a way to pay a higher salary and retain technical experts.